Hey everybody, welcome to Sportycast, the Gridiron edition. It's getting to the business end of the NFL, and obviously I've got Riyaz here with me. As you all know, we've said in a previous chat that we had, both Riyaz and I have started following the NFL, and this is our first full season in. So, Riyaz, how's it going, my man? All good?
Yeah, good. Not too bad. Nice and warm. It's heating up also in the NFL, so super excited for this weekend.
Yeah, it's going to be a bumper weekend of games. But before we get to the games, we're just going to touch on the divisional round. So essentially, if you compare it to other sports, you might call it the quarterfinals, right? But it's
Yeah.
essentially the divisional round playoffs that took place. And we're going to start with the first game that took place was between the Houston Texans and the Kansas City Chiefs. And obviously, the Chiefs prevailed there with Patrick Mahomes. I know you got some thoughts on that, Riyaz, so talk to me.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's obvious that the Chiefs kind of won. I suppose 23-14 was the final score there. It was a bit of I don't want to say boring, but a bit of a slow first couple of first half, I guess, first couple of quarters. But the I guess likely looked really good during the whole game. In fact, he received really well. Obviously, the Texans without Stephon Diggs and a couple of key players as well, so that kind of inhibited them slightly. But I think the big talking points from this game were the refs calls, because afterwards, like I went to see kind of the news, basically the reviews of the game and everything, and everybody was speaking about it, and I was like, oh, so this doesn't only happen in like soccer, in football. This happens in American football as well, where there's
It's
like
everywhere,
dodgy
man. It's
refereeing
everywhere.
decisions. It's crazy.
But yeah,
So
there's
there was a
a
couple
with
of
the
calls
refs.
here.
It's been a theme for the Chiefs. I think ultimately they've just been getting all the 50-50 calls that have been going their way. So it kind of, you make your own luck. You got a home ground advantage. You are the reigning champions. All these small things that tend to get calls going in your favor. But ultimately, the Chiefs were going to be too good for the Texans. The Texans had to play out of their skin to even, come close to winning. And like you said, very methodical early on, couple of field goals. And then once Mahomes got them on the board with a touchdown, they just kind of stayed ahead and played that way. And you see some teams in the NFL, they follow that pattern where they get ahead and then they just grind it out and stay ahead,
Yeah,
and they make the other team make the play. So the Chiefs, obviously,
yeah.
being the reigning champs, they do it the best.
It's like a Mourinho tactic, you know. It's a pragmatic style. um, this whole protecting the quarterback thing is a bit, and like I do understand it, right? I'm getting used to like the kind of where the calls work in the NFL this season. Obviously,
Yeah.
like you said, this is our first season we're watching. But I mean, some of the calls are just ridiculous. Like, are you not supposed to go in and try and at least affect the turnover, or like affect like some sort of misthrow from the quarterback? Like, how are you
Yeah.
not able to even touch him?
The thing with Mahomes is they say he's very good at baiting. So he draws you in, and then almost it's like how you'd say in soccer the flop or the dive. In NBA it's called the flop. In soccer it's the dive. Mahomes is very good at that. So he pulls you in and then kind of baits you into committing a foul, and the refs give it all the time because he's obviously the best QB in the league and one of the most high profile guys. So you get the
Yeah,
protection, man. At the end of the day, you earn it. So he's gonna milk it, whoever they come up against, and we'll touch on who they're gonna come up against a bit later on. But you just have to know he's gonna do it, and you kind of have to make sure you don't fall for his tricks. I mean, he's the best QB in the league, and there's a lot of talk which we'll come to a bit later on. But there's a lot of talk about him establishing himself as one of the best ever if
okay.
the Chiefs go on to get the three-peat. But moving on, we're going to stay in the AFC. And I know that the games didn't happen in this order, but just to make it make sense,
Okay.
essentially the winner of the Chiefs who won the game will take on the winner of the Bills Ravens, which took place
Yeah.
later on that weekend. So Bills Ravens, fantastic game, very close. Ended up with the Bills winning 27-25, where Josh Allen take on Lamar Jackson with a big storyline about who's going to choke and play of legacy and so on. And it came down to a single play talk me through that last play.
Yeah, shame, man. I feel so bad because, like, firstly, we have to say preface this by saying the weather was horrific, right? The weather was
Yeah,
really, really bad. So it was
it was
really
cold,
difficult for the
snowing.
receivers.
It was
Yeah,
tough.
it was really, really bad. But at the end of the day, the quarterback showed how good they are, right? They're two of the best quarterbacks in the league, and they did really well. But it was really tough for the receivers because of the kind of the weather. And it was a bit of a up and down game, I guess. But Mark Andrews at the end fumbling a ball over the line. And Shane Lamar came out afterwards to like say, look, it can happen to anybody. Like it's
Yeah.
not a thing. Like it's just one of those things that happen in the game. But that would have, I mean, it would have made the game a tie. Would take it to overtime. Would they have won it? I think something like that.
Would have gone to overtime because it was a 2-point play. They went for the
Yeah,
2 point. It would have leveled the scores and then guaranteed overtime. It
yeah,
is tough because Lamar Jackson ended up losing the game, but I don't think he was too bad. I don't think he really choked if you
no,
want to look at it that way, because there was a drive at the end of that quarter that led them into that position. I mean,
yeah,
he took them from his own goal line basically all the way down the field to score, and then they went for the 2 point play. And just unfortunately, he ran the right play. Everyone did their job, but just the ball had to stick, and it didn't. So it's going to be one of those sliding doors moments where he's always going to look back. And now the talk about Lamar Jackson is going to be regular season MVP. He's one of the best in the regular season. Can't cut it in the playoffs. Blah blah blah. But at the end of the day, like you said, the weather was terrible, snowing. It's hard to catch the ball, and yeah, I think the second quarter was the one that the Bulls went ahead. I mean, they scored 14 points, so they blew the game open, and then they just stayed ahead. Their defense was really good. I mean, they forced a lot of
yeah.
turnovers, and ultimately, in this sport, the more turnovers you force, the harder it is for the opposition to win. So, yeah, it could have gone either way. Two great quarterbacks, but now it's going to be up to the Bulls and Josh Allen to take on the Chiefs in the next round, and we'll touch on that a bit later. So, any other
Just
thoughts
one
on the
more. Yeah.
Ravens versus the Bulls before we move on?
Yeah, one more thing. I think the Bulls just like especially in the first half, I think they did well to kind of shut down Henry. Like not really shut him down, but they did well to try and defend him. Like they only really cared about him. The receivers were fairly open, but like they wanted to stop the running game of the Ravens, and
Yeah,
they did so fairly decently, especially because of the weather as well. Like you kind of prefer the running game when the weather is like that because of the drops that could occur for the
yeah,
receivers.
yeah,
So I think they did really well to shut down Derrick Henry as well as they did. They didn't really shut him down like completely, but because you can't really do that to Derrick Henry. But
yeah.
yeah, it was a really good game. Unfortunately, it costed by 2 drops from Mark Andrews. Unfortunately.
Yeah, and those are the moments that make or break you, right? And speaking of running backs, I know in the NFL there are certain running backs that are in the highest tier, and like you say, you can't stop them. You can only hope to contain them. That
Yeah.
seems to be the tactic. And if we're going to talk about running backs, let's move on to the NFC and talk about the Rams Eagles. Obviously,
The
Philadelphia
actual
Eagles
MVP of
have
the season.
the real star. Yes, that's
Yeah.
up there for debate. Saquon Barkley, the best running back in the league. So the Eagles prevailed over the Rams. Also another tight game, playoff football, 28-22. Your thoughts on that one? I mean, I know I picked the Rams, so I came up on the wrong end of this one.
Yeah, I mean, I found it hard to kind of look past Saquon because I mean, he's like just this is like our first season watching, right? Our first season following every game, and just watching the Eagles play and watching just his running prowess every game is insane. Like he gets meters all the time. You just give it to him. He waits for his and I think that's what he does really well. The way when the O-line is set up and you waits for them to create the gap for him, and then he takes the
Yeah,
gap nicely. So I think like that's very like crucial for running back is to Derrick Henry does well as well, but to basically wait for that gap to open up. Don't just charge through anywhere where you can. Wait for the gap and then go through it. So I think, and he's really quick as well, Saquon.
yeah. I mean, it's fairly methodical. I mean, it's all set up well, and the ability to take advantage of what the defense gives you. I think that's where the Eagles do really well, especially with the run game, because the Rams' run defense is not great at all. And I mean, we saw the game started with a touchdown to the quarterback, Jalen Hurts, a rushing touchdown.
Yeah,
He ran for 40 plus yards. And then Saquon Barkley got 2 touchdowns, also rushing touchdowns. Both were over 50 yards. I mean, one was 60 plus and the other one was 78 yards. So, I mean, this guy ran a decent part of the field, but it was all set up with the O-line, obviously, right? Making that space and creating those lanes for him. And again, like we discussed with the Bulls and Ravens, this game was in Philadelphia and it was also snowing. So the conditions underfoot weren't great, and you got that pace coming at you. He put guys on their backside, man. He's just sidestepping, getting past people, and they just couldn't keep up with him.
Yeah, I think the really important thing was that first touchdown. I think that set the tone for the game because I think the Rams were kind of waiting for the ball to go to Saquon, and as Barkley came across, Hurts kept it, and he went the other way. So I think that play kind of set him up for Barkley's future touchdowns, and I think it was really, really smart of them to do that. And like you said, it got horrible, and it was very hectic for
and it also forced the Rams to then play from behind. So they had to throw the ball. I mean, they could run. Kyren Williams went for over 100 yards in this game. He played really well from the running back position, but Stafford obviously doesn't have the athleticism that Hurts has. He had to throw. And the defense did well against Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. He had to rely on finding his tight ends, for short gains. They weren't really throwing far. You had to keep, obviously, with the conditions as well, you had to keep it close. And ultimately, the Eagles did enough to win. And their strategy in these playoffs have generally been get ahead and then just stay ahead, grind it out with very good defense and run the ball, manage the clock well, and so on, which we'll touch on again as we preview the upcoming games. Anything you want to add here for Rams Eagles before we move on?
No, I just want to big up Puka Nacua. You mentioned him there because I think he made a couple of really, really good grabs in the game. And this whole season, actually, he's had a really good season. And he's in the snow, like we said, it's really, really difficult to kind of grab, and he made some really, really great grabs. So big ups to Puka. He had a good game, but unfortunately, the Eagles, of course, came away with the victory in that one.
Yeah, Puka Nacua is very exciting. I mean, I think he's in his second year or third year max. I think he might be in his second year, and he just does some amazing things. Very interesting character, someone to follow, as you go forward and see what happens next season. So moving on to the last game in the NFC.
My favorite game of the NFC.
Exactly. That's why I kept it for last. A very different trend that this game followed in comparison to the others, which were fairly close and low or moderate scoring. This one was an offensive masterpiece, you could say. I mean, a very high scoring game where the number one seed in the NFC, the Detroit Lions, lost. They lost to the Washington Commanders and their rookie QB, 45-31. What a game! It was really exciting, and unfortunately, the Lions come up short again after going 15-2 for the season. It's just amazing what Jayden Daniels is doing.
Yeah, I honestly thought that the Lions were going to be the one to kind of beat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. I was hoping that because I thought they did really well in the regular season. But I guess it's going to be my boy Jayden to do it at the end of the day, hopefully. But it was a really, really good game, a fun game to watch. I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs was absolutely ridiculous. We spoke about Saquon, but Gibbs' ability is just as good. Like he's good at finding the outside lines. He runs hard and he puts his head down. And for a small guy, he does really, really well to make meters. But unfortunately, it comes back to the quarterbacks. And Jared Goff, I think also, because he was having a good season, I guess the Lions were having a good season. So in the game, unfortunately, it was a bit rough for him. I think three turnovers in the first half just alone, which was ridiculous and unfortunate for the Lions. But Jayden Daniels, his form currently is unbelievable. So many fourth down conversions for the Commanders as well. They have no fear. They absolutely have no fear. They go for it. And
I don't think they punted in that game. I don't think they punted at all. The punter never came into the game once. So that confidence they have in converting is unreal. And it tires you out as a defense, because you normally try to go three downs and then get a punter in, but they keep coming at you. And unfortunately for the Lions, their defensive line was already hit by injuries before the game. So, just keep getting thinner and thinner, and the Washington offense just took off. And I mean, going for 45 points, phenomenal. They scored a couple of rushing touchdowns. The QB hit a few guys in the red zone. So they had a very, I would say, the offense was quite spread. Didn't rely on one or the other. And even with Goff getting all those interceptions, he still managed to put up 31 points. And most
Yeah.
of the time, that's enough to win, right? If you had to play against any of the other teams, but unfortunately, he came up against the offensive juggernaut that the Commanders are. And yeah, it's just tough with the Lions. Just quickly on them, after now obviously losing in the divisional round, they've lost both their offensive coordinator and their defensive coordinator to other teams. So the
Ah,
offensive coordinator is Ben Johnson. He's now the Chicago Bears head coach. The defensive coordinator was Aaron Glenn. He took over at the Jets. So there's a lot of work for the Lions to do, and a lot of people thought that their window was closing, and it might actually have closed now. It's tough for them because they've done so well and they've never been to the Super Bowl. I don't know if they've never been to the Super Bowl or they just haven't won, but
okay.
something like that. That's their record. And speaking of records for a rookie QB, I don't think a rookie QB has been to the Super Bowl yet. So,
Okay.
there's a lot of things in play here for Jayden Daniels. There's talk about the best rookie QB season ever, and
I believe
it
it.
seems to be in play. So it could be really interesting. And anything else you want to add before we move on to the previews?
Yeah, I think just I want to big up my boy again because, like, I mean, it's not like they have outstanding wide receivers or outstanding running backs or outstanding tight ends. It's not like that. It's just that they're all really, really good players, but the way Daniels brings them into the game and the way they're able to attack is just really, really good. So,
Yeah, it's the
yeah,
sum of all the parts, right? Everything is just
yeah,
working well. I mean, you got the experience of Zach Ertz at tight end, who's kind of as a receiver for Jayden Daniels, especially on the fourth down. He often
yeah.
goes to Zach Ertz, especially if it's short. Someone that you trust, you can throw the ball to. You got Terry McLaurin out wide, who's really
Mhm.
good. He's an experienced wide receiver, very underrated. They got Yami Brown as well, who was drafted, I think, ahead of Amon-Ra St. Brown, and he had kind of
Okay.
brought it up before the game. So that was another big thing. And then obviously their running backs are solid professionals, man. They got Robinson and Austin Eckler, they might not be
Yeah.
in that top tier, but they're solid. And if you bring
Marcus.
everything together, it's working out quite well. So
Yeah.
going into the NFC Championship game, you're going to see the Washington Commanders take on the Philadelphia Eagles in Philadelphia. There's chances that it could snow again, bringing the running game into play. What's your pick for this? Who are you backing? And any key
Uh,
players that you want to touch on?
Yeah, it's gonna be difficult. I really want the Commanders to win. I really, really want the Commanders to win. So, in saying that, I'm going to do the reverse psychology, and I'm going to say the Eagles are going to win. I did that just because you said now you told me that it's going to be in Philadelphia and it's going to be bad weather,
Yeah,
and
it could snow, but I mean, could also not
yeah,
snow, but it's going to be
yeah.
cold.
Yeah, so I think the running game is going to be obviously super important, and I mean Barkley is just a cut above the rest. So
Yeah,
I'm going to go the Eagles, but I'm going to say it's going to be like a very small victory. It's going to be
yeah.
tight. It's going to be very tight. What do you
Yeah, I
think
think
about that?
with this, it's basically the heart says Washington, the head
Yeah.
says Eagles. It's one of those where logic dictates that the Eagles should win with a home ground
Yes.
advantage, the better running back. But with what the Commanders have been doing, everyone's kind of hoping they can upset them and move on. And what a lot of people are saying is that the Washington probably have a better chance at beating the Chiefs if they get that far because they have a better QB. But I don't actually know. I'm not buying that fully. At the end
Yeah.
of the day, like we said, the run game is going to be vital, and Washington do concede a lot in terms of their run defense. It's not that great. Obviously, you saw Gibbs took advantage of that, and having a weapon like Saquon Barkley, and obviously the dual threat of Jalen Hurts as well. There's a lot
Yeah.
that could go in Philadelphia's favor. But ultimately, it's going to come down to the two QBs and who can not turn over the ball. If they can avoid turnovers, then I think the game will be close. But otherwise, I think Philly do have the edge. They have the experience. They've also been in the Super Bowl before. And yeah, I think the Eagles might just edge it, even though we all want the Commanders, the fairy tale to continue. So yeah, quite exciting. Let's see how that plays out. Over on the other side of the draw, we've got the AFC Championship game, which is the big one between the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs at Arrowhead. So the Chiefs are playing at home. They got the home ground advantage, and we know what that means as well. So
the refs in the pocket.
Listen, it's like if you don't support the Chiefs, everyone says that, and if you're a Chiefs fan, you're like, just don't hate, man. The interesting thing here, just to set this game up for you quickly, right? Mahomes versus Allen. That's the QB battle. So Allen has the regular season locked in. He's beat Mahomes 4 times in the regular season, but Mahomes has beat Allen 3 times in the playoffs.
Okay.
So, you can look at the regular season form and say, okay, the Bills have a good chance, which they do, but it's that clutch factor that Mahomes has, in the playoffs. And I don't know if Josh Allen can do enough to beat him, but I think this is probably one of his best opportunities to do so.
And so what do you think is going to happen? What's your prediction for the game then?
For me, I'm going Bills. I mean,
okay.
I've liked the Bills this season because, again, like Washington, there's no real standout weapon that Josh Allen has. He's got really good running back in James Cook. He's got a couple of good tight ends, Dawson Knox, Dalton Kincaid. He's got wide receivers that aren't really, wide receiver one level, but they solid, man. Like there's Amari Cooper, who they traded for, who hasn't had a big game in a Bills uniform yet. So maybe this is his game. There's Khalil Shakir, experienced guy, I just think Keon Coleman's a very interesting rookie. So they got a lot of players who he can use, but obviously Mahomes has the better weapons in terms of having Kelsey to throw to, who just has upped his game in the playoffs. It's like they were saving him for the playoffs because he had a very poor season up until, the back end. He's like, okay, it's time to play now, time to get serious, you know what I mean? So I'm rooting for the Bills, but I hope it's the Bills. Right? What about you?
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you said that about Kelsey because I felt that we're watching the games kind of like they hardly found him. He did a couple of good plays here and there during the regular season, but towards the end and now in the playoffs, they just want to look for him all the time. So
the thing is, right? Say for example, you got a third down or you got your fourth down. Short, let's say 3-2 or 4-2, 4-5. Mahomes to Kelsey is like a lock.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's so much confidence in that play. And that's what I think is ultimately going to be the deciding factor. Even though I want the Bills to win, I think that's where the Chiefs have the edge. And they obviously have a really good defense. So.
And I mean, that last touchdown that Mahomes threw halfway to the floor was ridiculous. Like, they tackled him. He was going down, and he still threw it straight into his hand. So
he does.
That clutch gene is strong. That clutch gene is strong.
And from a narrative perspective, if the Chiefs win, you're talking about the three-peat. You're talking about Mahomes getting his 4th Super Bowl victory before the age of 30. That's like crazy because I think Brady only got his 4th in his late 30s. So you're talking about a rare year for Mahomes, and I mean he could walk away from the game at the age of 30 with 4 Super Bowls and a three-peat, and could easily be the best QB ever. There's talk that he's in that conversation. So from a narrative perspective, it could be really interesting should they win, where they're going to go make some history. Andy Reid's one of the winningest coaches in the NFL. I think he's over 300 wins in his career. So there's a lot over here that, Kelsey's towards the back end as well. So, there could be that factor in it as well. So very interesting setup. I'm going to go Bills. I'm going to say the Bills take it.
Okay.
My final guess. What about you?
Yeah, I think if Mahomes does retire, he should retire before 30 with whatever he gets because
CTE, yeah. Save it.
Yeah, because shame he gets so much tackles and so much, he gets hit so hard sometimes that he must be careful and all that nonsense. Oh God. Anyways, I'm gonna go with the Chiefs. It's
Okay.
difficult to look past the Chiefs. I think they'll win it, not easily, but by 10 points or more. I think they'll go. They don't really like winning by more than 10 points, do they? They just go up, like we said, Mourinho football.
Yeah, they keep it fairly close, man. And
yeah,
in the fourth quarter, they just deliver.
Yeah. But I think they'll win it, but I also want them to win it so that Daniels can kind of beat Mahomes. That's what I want, more than Allen
Okay,
beating
you're
Mahomes.
getting up that line.
Yeah, I want that rookie QB season. That's what I want.
Let's see how that plays out. This has been a nice chat, Riyaz. Thanks. It's been fun to
thanks
just
to
top
you.
it up a little, check back on the games that took place last weekend, and then look ahead at these two, conference championship games, and let's see what the Super Bowl is going to look like. We'll have some time because there's a week in between these games and the Super Bowl. There's normally a Pro Bowl, so there is some time off before they go to the Super Bowl. So we'll have a lot of time to digest what happened and look ahead to our first big Super Bowl where we actually know what's going on and we're not just tuning to see what the halftime show is going to be like. But yeah, cool. Thanks a lot, man. I'll catch you on the other side.
It's been great.